Did you see this right here over my left shoulder?
I see a globe and I see a baseball.
You know what that baseball is?
Enlighten me. I feel like I do.
There's a little mark here. It's a little mark and a
Okay.
little sign. That is a hand signed Kyle Schwarber home run derby ball. Popped into my left mitt 451 feet from home plate in right field a couple of weeks ago.
The only event I will say a man above 13 should be able to bring their glove to.
Opportunity knocks, and sometimes you just got to snag it out of the air.
Did your kids think you're the coolest guy in the world?
It ranks the single coolest thing I've ever done in their eyes. I mean, maybe in my eyes too. It's probably what did I say a couple of weeks ago? Turning double play with Cole Hamels was like the peak of my athletic accomplishments. I think this is it. I think this surpasses it.
You've had a better last couple of weeks than I have.
Yeah, how's your head? Did anyone beat you up?
No, I fell off a bike last week. If you're a regular listener of the show, that's kind of funny. If you're a regular listener of the show, you might have noticed that we did a little more interviews, and maybe Kyle did a solo with Santiago. Well, there was a reason behind that. I had a nice little black eye on Wednesday after falling off a bike over the weekend. So I was on the DL. I was playing injured. I called in the righty. I said, Kyle, you handle the Wizard of Og. And I do miss. I mean, that's one that you circle on the calendar. So
I was looking forward to you showing the picture of him, the BAM at the conference, one of our favorite moments. Yeah. Did your big head break the fall?
My gigantic Neanderthal skull was able to absorb much of the impact. I should have called a go-for trainer and helped me out with my head issues.
They could have come up with an EUA for your biking circuit.
All right, let's get into the show. We got a lot to get into right now. Welcome back to Buying Sandlot. On today's episode, we're talking about the Tampa Bay Rays making youth sports a part of their new stadium. Rush Soccer partners with Nike, and we've got some other things to talk about in the world and business of youth sports. Before we get into that, though, we want to thank Black Magic Design for sponsoring the show.
Yes, Black Magic Design. Tropical Sevens, held annually in Tampa, bills itself as the largest youth rugby event in North America. Every kick, phase, scrum, and try this year's edition was streamed thanks to Black Magic Design. Youth sports production company Game On Live Studio uses Black Magic Design product in all of its work, including its role in broadcasting Tropical Sevens, 250 plus teams, 750 plus matches across 15 fields, and 1.2 million square feet over 4 days of frenetic action, stream live in its entirety at a level not previously seen in the sport. Everyone who watches youth sports, athletes, parents, grandparents, coaches, college recruiters, has come to expect streaming that looks and sounds professional. Black Magic Design can deliver just that for your club, event, facility, or school. Their suite of affordable products are at the same high quality as those used by professional sports teams and in Hollywood, delivering easy-to-learn multi-cam streaming that opens up new revenue streams. Kyle, we talk about it all the time, but the broadcast potential for youth sporting events, and maybe we touch on NFL flag briefly, which reached a number close to the Little League World Series, requires premium professional quality video and cameras, and Black Magic Design is there to bring it to your organization, whether it's a small organization with a prosumer size camera for your stream or a production level camera for your national TV event. Check out our friends at Black Magic Design and thank them for sponsoring the show. And you look so good in your crystal clear HD. We could still see the road rash.
It's why I couldn't come on last week. It was too 4K. It was too good. It was too good. People would have started asking questions.
You long for the days of black and white 480.
Yeah. Take me back to the 720p days. All right, let's get into it. Tampa Bay Rays, they make youth sports a part of their new stadium plans. The Rays haven't finalized a stadium deal yet, but their proposed $2.3 billion stadium seems to be comfortable because they're releasing ballpark renderings, and one we saw pictured included 24 youth volleyball courts on the field. Now, why is that? The Rays have said they want the building to host events year-round and generate significant economic impact beyond the Rays' 81 home games. Gone are the days when only Texas High School State Championship is held at Jerry World or the New York Baseball State Championship is held at Yankee Stadium. Every major city seems like they're going to build a new stadium with a roof or a district around them so they can maximize the space 365 days a year. Kyle, I know you've got a couple of opinions on here, a couple of trend watches you wanted to share. Let's start with the stadium and mixed use development one you had in the newsletter today.
Yeah, to me, it's always funny that we get these 30-year-old stadiums that, like, all of them are seemingly coming up to be renewed and rebuilt, and they were all so modern at the time, and they tried to get away from that cookie cutter, Vet Stadium, Houston Astrodome type look that they all had, Three Rivers Stadium. But it turns out now everyone wants a roof so you could do things the rest of the season, plus add all these hospitality areas and things like that. So my take is really twofold. A, super interesting here, right? I mean, we covered the youth sports facilities arms race, and granted, pro stadiums aren't going to be able to serve all of that demand. But some of these really premium events, whether it's a volleyball or a cheer competition or the perfect game All-Star Classic, which is going to be played at Citizens Bank Park in a couple weeks and we'll be there. These could be really well served by pro stadiums. And I've asked around to a few people, some people on the camp side, some people on the pro side. And I'm like, man, how is like the industry, how have pro teams not realized that they can be, what Ripken is in Aberdeen, right? They could sell bucket list what the Cooperstown All-Star Village is, right? How have pro stadiums not realized that they can use their real estate during downtime to have these bucket list youth sports events that lots of people would want to come to, players and parents alike, at scale? And the answer I always get, this more goes for outdoor stadiums. Indoor arenas have fuller schedules, often two teams, more concerts, more things going on. But especially for the outdoor stadiums, the answer I always get is it's the grass, right? I mean, these especially in baseball, super protective of the grass, right? A little bit of rain and, they won't let anybody on it unless it's a big concert and they're happy to destroy their field for a couple $1 million. So I don't think it's it. I think the Rays are going to be the first of many teams that when you're thinking about retractable roofs, that stadium, I believe, is going to have turf. Other stadiums will either have turf or the retractable grass that they're doing in Vegas. I think they do it in Arizona, so they can put turf down and then they can slide the grass in and out as needed. That will unlock lots more use cases for these pro stadiums. And I would imagine it's going to draw some of the premium youth sport at scale. It will draw some of the premium youth sports events to these stadiums. Parents want to go there, players want to go there. They could charge more. There's more amenities, right? So it's something to watch if you're thinking about all these little towns that are trying to justify $60 million for a tournament venue. If an hour down the road, your pro team has a venue that can handle that capacity, plus all the amenities and the parking and all of that, without that, $60 million municipal bond, like, you wonder at scale what that does to kind of the facilities arms race. I'm sure it's a little bit more nuanced than that, but that's trend one. Trend two is we talked about amenities and hospitality and youth sports a lot. How could venues, big and small, really cater to parents? Every parent I talk to is like, I just raised this idea and they're like, oh my God, yes, right? Like, and I always say, who's building the Aramark for youth sports? And there's some companies, these bigger venues have hot food and things like that. But if you're talking about pro venues, all those amenities are taken care of. And that sort of dovetails into another trend, which is this sports hospitality trend. On Location, which was the official hospitality provider for the World Cup, says it generated, I think, more than twice before the tournament started this year, more than twice as much revenue in hospitality sales than the last World Cup. And half of those sales were to individuals, like private personal sales, not corporate sales, showing that there is consumer demand. And it's going to be something like $1 to $2 billion in sales. It's going to be a crazy number. And eventually, I think that will come out. You are seeing kind of the airport loungeification at sports stadiums. And I think the World Cup has given a blueprint to every pro team owner on how they can have tiered pricing, lounges, and extract the most money from their venues, especially in sports where the regional TV dollars, baseball, are beginning to dry up, right? So if you kind of take more pro stadiums, more retractable roofs and turfs that you can have year-round programming, plus also all the hospitality offerings and areas, you can support multi-thousand person tournaments at these things. So I don't know. I'm just really interesting, fascinating. And I think it's something, again, you could create, everyone talks on Rival talks about creating these premium elite experiences. Aberdeen, Maryland, awesome. Cooperstown, awesome, right? Imagine if that experience is at, I don't know, it's not going to be Yankee Stadium, but like, pick your future Rays Stadium with the roof. You're playing in a professional baseball venue. What's better than that? You get a tour, amenities, restaurants. Go ahead.
Yeah, no. The activation is definitely there. The partnership, I think, is really interesting. But like the competition is going to be so interesting because it's going to really heat up in a couple of ways. We have a complex map that's actually going live on Wednesday for premium subscribers. Right now, we're looking at it. It's already active on our end. It shows 4 complexes in the Tampa Clearwater area, and if you go down to Bradenton, there's even more. 5. Well, yeah, you got to go to Bradenton a little bit, but yeah, I mean, the proposed stadium is also across the street from the Buccaneer Stadium, which every owner you've alluded to, they treat these stadiums like Leo DiCaprio. Once they hit 30 years old, get rid of them. It's coming up on 30 years old in about 3 years, and it'll probably have a new stadium district. I don't know if they'll put a roof on it. The fact that they already do host Super Bowls and it's, Florida. But they're going to have to, the Braves are going to have to start competing with that, and the complexes are going to have to start competing to that. And then the major question is like, what happens to these complexes when, brand new MLB and NFL stadiums start popping up? I think one opportunity is there. If Perfect Game wants to have like the Tampa Classic and they have 15U to 18U players. Well, maybe Tampa Bay Rays can't do a 500 team baseball tournament, but maybe a complex down the street can do that. So they play the Friday, they play the Saturday at the complex down the street, but they're also doing skills competitions. They're doing showcases at the Tampa Bay Rays Stadium on Friday or Saturday for scouts, and it's invite only for these 15 to 18U. And then how do we wrap the Tampa Bay Rays into this? Well, there's the championship games on Sunday or Monday for Perfect Game to play at, so you're playing on the field and everything. So I think there's a really good opportunity for partnerships, and I think you nailed it with the activations and everything. I thought it was maybe kind of a little crazy to think that parents would want premium experiences at youth sports, and then you think about it with, if I had an upgrade of food, if I could go to get a air conditioned spot. I was reading something about the climate control right now with youth sports is out of control, and a lot of games are getting canceled around there. If someone has a temperature controlled stadium or a roof, like, you now don't even have to worry about canceling games or rain or all that stuff and everything. So there are so much opportunities, and we're just scratching the surface. This is on the bleeding edge with what the Rays are doing right now. And I think it's really interesting with youth sports, man, using it kind of as a political football, in terms of like bills and stuff passing, using it as, hey, we're going to get this over the finish line with city council. We want to say no to the youth sports kids. We're going to put on a volleyball tournament with 25 plus courts. You're going to say no to those kids? I think it's all interesting.
Well, a couple things. I mean, yeah, I'm not even talking about, yes, the hospitality aspect is nice and could, trickle down on the margins to the youth sports families. But just even the middle of the road pro stadium has amenities and, restrooms and food capabilities well beyond 99% of youth sports venues. So I think parents would just be happy to have some shelter, some food, good bathrooms, a place to sit, right? If you're spending all day at a field, like it, I'll tell you that anybody listening, and I don't think it's a surprise to anybody, but just talk to parents about what their single pain point is. And you're going to hear it's time, right? It's the time commitment. So San Diego's, the academies are thinking about how do we reduce the time by making it part of the education day. Okay. The bleeding edge of that idea. But the bigger one is, hey, if I got to go somewhere for a weekend, give me a map, give me somewhere to sit, give me better food. Every parent wants this. There's clear demand. It's a very hard problem to solve because you got tens of thousands of small fields across the country, and it's hard to deploy this. The stadiums, have the infrastructure to do it. So super interesting. And again, I love this concept because pro teams really need to think about revenue maximization now. And we talked about this a couple of episodes ago. How do they maximize their IP? Youth sports, player meet and greets. This was on, about a month ago, we talked about it. And here you have the Rays, thinking about it. Hey, we play 81 games there a year, maybe a few playoff games every decade for the Rays, right? What do we do the other 400 or 280 days? Here you go. So super interesting. We'll keep an eye on this one.
A couple other examples. Commanders are doing this with the new RFK Stadium. They proposes $89 million sportsplex to the stadium, designed to host year-round youth sporting events and tournaments, and at least 30% of the broader site is also supposed to be dedicated to active and passive recreation. And then Inter Miami is also building a stadium, I think it might be up by now, that'll include community soccer and youth athletic fields with free access to the soccer fields for the city of Miami youth, a 58-acre public park, and retail, restaurants, hotels, and entertainment. And then we talked to Chris Klein from Hometown Soccer Holdings a couple months ago, I believe, and he was tasked with finding 20 different stadiums for MLS Next clubs, and he mentioned on the episode that they're interested to have youth tournaments and high school state finals there and stuff. So it's endless.
It's a better story when you're tying in the pro. It's a better story because now that tourism economic development story. Yeah, I'm not an expert in this space, but if you just think logically about it from first principles, now you have pro tourism economics that are bringing in 10, 20, 40,000 people to a venue dozens of times per year. But now you can also bolt on the youth and other entertainment economic development aspects of that and have the best of both worlds. Granted, the cost is more for a pro venue, but in a single consolidated venue, right? You don't have to prove it out, by just, the youth, the youth hotel rooms and such. Doesn't mean that opportunity, certainly it's not going away, but for the premium events, certainly the perfect games, the big cheer competitions, the big volleyball competitions, who wouldn't want to do it there, right? And it unlocks, I think the bigger unlock here is just the recreation opportunity. If these stadiums have turf, right? Every rec league in your DMA can come in and play get 1 2-day event there, right? Get to play their all-star game, get to play their playoffs there, right? Maybe 3:00 on a Wednesday, you may have to make it work, but it allows kids of all skill levels to experience this and breeds fandom, right? If these pro teams are thinking about how do we maximize our IP, right? Take the Rays, not the best fan base there, but if there's a local rec league in Bradenton, right? And they get to go play, a doubleheader in the stadium one day. And these are kids who are not playing in perfect game tournaments or unrivaled tournaments, but it's just 9, 10-year-old rec. Imagine the lasting impact that has on fan development. So I think we're early days of, call it the revenue maximization trend. It'll be fun to watch and how it impacts youth.
And everything we see trickles down, college sports is easily, needs revenue generation. I think over the weekend we got, what was it? A
great example.
$48 million cap, I think now with that Safe College Sports Act, I think is what is being proposed right now that the Big Ten and the SEC have agreed to it.
I think when we say pro now, we just assume college is included. I mean, it's pro sports.
True.
It's not being glib. This isn't making some statement. It's just professional sports. Which is great. Like I cast no judgment on that part of it. It's just, hey, these are new pro sports. But you're right. The college state, hey, there's more of them, right? So the opportunity is larger, and they're in areas often outside of the densest cities. So it's complementary. It's not either or, right? It's in Happy Valley, Pennsylvania, right? It's not competing with Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. So it's in addition. And they're starting from a lower base in terms of, the way they were thinking about revenue over the years. So huge opportunity. Interesting stuff.
Yeah, saw that with a couple. I got just kind of next jersey patch deals. We were talking about that with ND and Ohio State. A lot of the jersey patch deals I saw were banks, which is just like the easiest activation of all time. How do you want to get to the next generation of banking customers? You want to go to a youth sports tournament. I mean, ND and Ohio State got a collective $35 million from 2 jersey patches that will be on every single sport on the universities and stuff. But I think everything trickles down from the pros, like you said, to college. And I think the next stop is high school youth sports. We saw it with Spire already earlier this year.
I think this is because banking, I'm going to offend some banker somewhere, but like consumer banking, business banking is, for most parts, kind of a commodity, right? The same way a consumer packaged good company is, the same way a crypto exchange might be, right? So I think there's a reason that historically banks were such big sponsors of stadiums, right? Because at the end of the day, it's just about branding. The same way Coke Coke is just sugar water, and it's all branding exercise. Consumer, toothpaste is toothpaste, right? So I think the banks, they have the money. But also like just the name, we're in Philly. It was the Wells Fargo Center for years, right? And like, if you're in the area, well, give me a bank that you trust and accept. Okay. Wells Fargo, right? Or Citizens Bank, right? Because you just see it over and over again, the brand exposure. So I think there's a reason why banks sponsored stadiums. And then you saw crypto exchanges very briefly, sort of run the same playbook because it was more or less the same thing. And now they're looking to what is the outsized ROI? And it's these patches on college teams. Now, here's to where I think this can extend to youth. And I've talked about this, team and league naming rights. You can't do this in pro sports because the Yankees, the Giants, the Cowboys, right? That brand is a material part of the value of that team. So you can't have a team named after a sponsor in pro sports. It will be the stadium and jersey patches. Same with college. You're not renaming Michigan football to Chase Bank, Chase Bank, Michigan, right? So you're putting a patch on the jersey. Other than the perfect games of the world, we keep mentioning them. We got to come up with better examples here. The True Lacrosse or the Rush Soccers of the world, right? They're 95 to 98% of sports clubs and certainly recreation leagues have virtually zero brand naming value, like zero brand value. And they would be better off selling, forget about the patch, the entire team name rights to a bank, right? In your area, the club soccer team, why not Chase Bank 8U Select, right? You could go beyond the venue naming right, beyond the patch. You just outright name the whole team, or if it's a rec league, just name the whole league. First Citizens Bank 10U Rec Baseball, right? And then each team's a different color or a different product. Like it doesn't matter. It's free money. We did this poll. I got to put out the results. We got like a couple dozen responses, I think. Nothing huge, but I mean, private and nonprofit club members alike were kind of like, yeah, like we would take this revenue. If someone could consolidate, we'll happily rename our team if it gets $200 a player per year. That's a registration fee for many.
Both sides of the coin were cool with it?
In the majority. I got to look at the numbers. But yeah, I think the majority was like, yeah, absolutely. Even the private clubs, like, yeah, why not? I don't care. But you can't do that with college. So you get my point is like Ohio State can't rename themselves. So the best you're going to do is a jersey patch and stadium naming and all the ancillary stuff. These sports clubs don't have that sort of like brand cachet that they're not willing to sell, especially on the rec level where it's just named after the town. Just like sports stadiums used to be named after the prior owner or named after the town, Three Rivers, right? It's like, all right, well, you know what? Screw the town. Like someone's going to give us $10 million for this. So if you're a local rec team or rec league, like screw the town name. If someone's going to give us $10,000 to deploy at our league, to rename the league, who says no? Who cares?
Yeah, I mean, and such easy activations too. I mean, I know Chase Bank is going to be doing financial literacy, NIL literacy with these athletes and everything. They're going to be opening up like financial institution. They're going to be sponsoring clubs and stuff for hospitality at the stadiums and everything. The activations are just, they're scratching the surface of the activations that they can do and stuff to, get some goodwill with the brand and everything. Moving on to another brand, Nike partnered with Rush Soccer. Rush Soccer has secured a global partnership with Nike that will start in 2027, its 30th anniversary year. The apparel giant was previously Rush's first major footwear partnership in its early years. The sides now come back together as Nike begins to push for a greater presence in the youth soccer ecosystem. Rush will also have custom Nike uniform and early access to apparel, equipment, and new products. Nike is probably the best sports brand ever created, and I think Rush is the best youth soccer brand created. So it's nice to be back together. Said beautifully by CEO Justin Miller over there at Rush Soccer. What a quote.
What a hard-o statement. What a hard-o statement. Love it. Love it. Yeah, love this. Rush was with Capelli for a long time. Obviously big in the soccer space, in the youth soccer space, excuse me. Listen, Nike's had a rough, 5 years. I know they brought the new CEO in a couple of years ago. I wouldn't bet against Nike, right? I mean, I wrote this in the newsletter. I look at the shoes, my kids like rec basketball games. 9 out of 10 kids are wearing Nike shoes, right? To me, that is enough signal you need that this is still cool amongst kids. And I keep seeing articles about how On Running is the new Nike. It's like, yeah, that article is written by a 52-year-old who wants comfort while they walk, right? Go watch 10-year-olds playing sports and they're still wearing Nikes. So I think this is a cool partnership for Rush. Two big brands coming together in the youth space and then obviously in Nike. And I think it's undeniably cool that they're going to get, custom Nike kits, right? Think about what Nike, that is still cool to kids. Like think about what Nike does with Oregon. And I think there's lots of potential there for all of these brands to, come up with collabs are all the rage in like retail right now. You take brand X and brand Y and they come up together. If Nike gets good at this and other, kind of major apparel and equipment manufacturers and come up with custom stuff for the larger clubs and organizations like this, huge win. I think huge opportunity. It doesn't need to be that custom. It just needs to be they need to have the systems in place to deploy, give Rush their own unique look, give Surf, Rush, same parent owner, their own look, and so on and so forth.
Do you still think this, remember when recruits would start picking colleges because they were a Nike school? I remember that. I remember looking back in like 2011, like Temple was I think they were an Under Armour school. And I remember us being like, no wonder we can't get recruits in Philadelphia. We're a freaking Under Armour school in basketball. Nobody in the inner cities or where they recruit out of Philadelphia are wearing Under Armour. Everybody's wearing Jordans. Everyone's wearing Nikes.
Did Temple not have those Nike jerseys with that like those three little gold things on the neck like Villanova does?
No,
those three little gold championship things on the back.
Well,
was that not something Temple had?
No, we did win the NIT back when the NIT was bigger than the Final Four. I just want to say that back in like 1930, shout out Harry Litwack. But we're a Jordan Brand school now, so we've gotten to
there you go.
We've become in the 21st century and stuff. So I wonder how much if Rush Soccer is competing for a guy versus another academy, them being a Nike school and being like, hey, listen, look at all this gear that our kids get and everything, and I wonder what the brand cachet is there and if that still has that weight.
Real-time example. My 8-year-old, we have 3 teams. We have our local rec travel organization, which he's on. We have FC Delco, which is a premium club, which he made when he decided not to play. And then there's a Rush Soccer 20 minutes in the other direction, right? We have 3 general options. And I told him the other day after the Rush is like, hey, the Rush team got Nike, got a partnership with Nike. He's 8. He's like, what's that mean? I was like, well, they're going to get like custom Nike jerseys. And like his eyes were like this. Wow. Right? Like this. Wow. Like, that's cool. Like that's it. So I actually agree with you. I think something like that, if you're deciding between 2 clubs and they're both a 20-minute drive, yeah, this is cool though. They got like their own Nike kit. Cool.
Yeah. No, it's like when Reebok backed up the Brinks truck for LeBron James and they pitched him well. Steve Stout, who LeBron loved and everything, pitched them all they could. And then at the end of the day, it was just like, well, we're going up against Nike. LeBron took Nike easily. And he would have made more money with Reebok in the end, but to the start. But
don't bet against the swoosh.
Don't bet against the swoosh. No. Let's get into our
NFL
next
flag?
topic. NFL flag. The ratings, yes, the ratings on the NFL flag absolutely crushed. Comparable numbers to the Little League World Series championship. The girls' high school final on Sunday averaged around 1.12 to 1.14 million viewers. In comparison, the boys' final for Little League World Series in 2025 did 2.28, so almost half of that. And in their first year, kind of putting ESPN's whole entire weight behind the product. So, what was your kind of reaction to these ratings?
I think you said it right there. ESPN's entire weight behind the product. ESPN ABC does a better job than anyone. And I know SportsCenter has lost its relevance over the years, but when that Disney gets its hands around a sporting event, they have enough top of funnel touch points through the ABC, the broadcast network, through just the omnipresent nature of ESPN and sports, even outside just like the cable brand, to make things relevant. I actually think ESPN struggles more with the premium events. I'm interested to see how they pull off the Super Bowl. Like NBC, CBS, and Fox have done a phenomenal job with the World Cup, with the Masters, with the NBA on NBC and Sunday Night Football. And ESPN's production for those things always feels a little bit JV, right? A little too, like, tries to be too hip and on a time gone by. But they still have this ability to elevate events, into the mainstream better than anybody else. So I think this is a function of that. It's great for flag, but I don't think it's a surprise to the Little League World Series, now the flag championships on the combined networks of ESPN, ABC, do
and
so
NFL
well.
Network.
And NFL Network. So that, it's good. That's a good point.
We love the production. I think we talked about the production. I mean, they had the cameras on top of hats. I thought the broadcasters did a great job. They mic'd up the players. Like, that's so cool. In-game interviews or sideline reporters, like, they put their entire weight behind it, and it felt like you were watching a premium broadcast.
And right, and we wrote about the Ripken Nationals, like we kind of snarked on it being on CBS Sports, and I know it's early days, right? But it's like, you still, despite the fact that everyone thinks the internet has disintermediated TV relevance, certainly broadcast TV, cable relevance, especially with younger generations, but it still has the ability, this passive viewing ability, especially for these newer events, that doesn't exist. Rob Ponder was on here and said, 369,000 consecutive streams on PG.TV. That is a huge exception. They have thought years about building brand, but getting someone to actively seek out an event, a stream, which always has an extra layer of challenge, and get that number is the exception rather than the rule. And so so much of sports is about passive viewership, right? I think this is why, soccer did so well on Fox. The World Cup did so well on Fox, is because they can use their other broadcast to amplify it. And then you just have this, there's something about just being able to put on a TV channel in the background at a bar, right? Certainly during the summer, that drives up ratings. A lot of people probably weren't actively seeking out, or some subset of people were not actively seeking out the NFL flag championships last Sunday. But again, I'll just go to my use case. You kind of go to YouTube TV, right? And you see, all right, well, what's on right now? What live sports are on? You're like, oh, cool. This is the only thing on right now. We're going to put it on. And that brings in new fans. And I think you still need the broadcast and cable networks to be able to inject something into the public consciousness like that. So, the premium sports events still need to think about those partnerships. You can't just rely on your own stream, unless you're Rob, they're really good at it.
Yeah, you mentioned the megaphone that needs to be happening. I think you related it back to the home run derby. Netflix did some good numbers, but did not beat ESPN's numbers, and that's due to being behind a paywall essentially.
But it was down only 15 or 20%, and all the news article, right? It was 5.5 million versus 5.1. Yeah. It was within within shooting distance, right? I actually took that as a positive, right? You took an event that's been on ESPN for decades, right? That gets all those passing viewing benefits, all the promotional might of ESPN, and you come close to it. And on Netflix, people need to seek it out a little bit more. Netflix did a pretty good job of promoting it. It was at the top of the screen for a while. I actually took that as a win to even get close. I think people really discount how much passive viewing still happens on TV. People flicking around. Let's throw some live sports in the background.
You were really lucky to be at the home run derby because the broadcast was not the greatest. I don't know if you saw that. The broadcast of ESPN of the NFL flag championships would crap on the Netflix broadcast. Could you hear Will Ferrell in the stadium?
We could. I'll say I wasn't lucky. It was skill when I caught the ball. But you're talking about the. I will say, so what was clear at the event was that this was a Netflix production, right?
Yes.
The whole in-person experience was a Netflix production. Even the way they introduced the Fanatic, that was the one eye roll moment where they introduced him as Rocky, and there were some guys who worked for Major League Baseball sitting in the row behind us, and they're like, "Oh man, the Fanatic deserved better than that," right? It was funny to hear them. They weren't from Philly, but they were MLB. They all had MLB tags. There was a row of 10 of them. All the baseball guys dress the same. By the way, if you ever notice this, the baseball execs, they all have the same slightly baggy performance fabric 3-button golf shirt, khaki. They all look alike. All the baseball execs look alike. Anyway, I probably just pissed off some people. The whole event though was Netflix. From the wristbands they gave out to people in the stands to the music, that was their production. In person, it was fantastic. I think I enjoyed it more in the game. The energy, the lights, the pacing. I thought they did a really good job. Will Ferrell played great in the stadium. I think people were like, "Hey, this is cool." This is awful. I know, but with Michael Buffer probably got $1 million to do his thing, right? Bryce Harper getting up on the turnbuckle and breaking it. It was actually it came off really well in person. I watched it back to see if I could find myself catching the ball, and they cut away pretty quick. But yeah, I didn't like the camera angle on the home runs, but otherwise I thought it was pretty good. Nothing could have been worse than the Chris Berman days, late stage Chris Berman doing the home run derby.
One more before we get out of here. A new AI company or a new company called District One will make YouReport, an AI-powered content management system that turns inputted data into news stories available to all high schools for free during the upcoming academic year. This is according to Sports Business Journal. The offering is part of a $20 million rollout initiative that will feature a handful of major sports. Future academic years will bring more sports and tiered pricing that will go up to close to $2K annually. The platform is designed to help high school and college administrators scale coverage of their sports programs and other extracurriculars amid a decline in local news bandwidth, according to a report. Colleges can also utilize the tech for close to $3K a year. Users can edit the copy before it publishes and add quotes, photos, etc. CEO Peter Fitzpatrick told SBJ that report may be able to help schools generate sufficient web traffic to create sponsorship assets. Might as well round it off with more sponsorship talk. We've been doing it the entire time.
I hate this.
I hate this idea. I hate this idea. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of this idea.
Let me read something else. Google AI overviews. Huddle text recaps and automated game summaries provide players, coaches, and fans with key metrics, stats, and play descriptions derived directly from game data and video tagging. By the way, so does Game Changer and every other streaming platform out there. This is report is like local community news written by AI. Fine, right? But they are positioning this as if there's any demand for AI written game recaps of high school sporting events. Huddle already does this. It's in 98% of high school sports touch Huddle in some way, right? Never mind all the other streaming platforms. Nobody wants this. This comes from the Chuck Todd School of Thought. He spoke at Project Play and he said something else about how youth sports is going to save local journalism because somehow he thinks local newspapers own the distribution rights to high school football games. Like, this is like a 40-year-old view. So I think there's a lot of journalists hand-wringing about how we're going to tap into local sports written local sports coverage to save the brand and sell sponsorships against. You don't need it. Nobody does it. All the video cameras that are shooting all these events are already doing these recaps. And by the way, no one really even wants the recaps. They just want the AI-generated highlights. That's the better version of that. It's not like it's cool. The media people are all excited. Chuck Todd's throwing a party about it. No one needs it. No one needs this.
No 14 to 18-year-old right now wants to be a journalist. I might piss off a couple of journalists that might be listening to us, but like everybody wants to be a social media influencer. Everyone wants to be a YouTuber. Like I think a way better example, I'll just put my digital media hat on for a second, is give the kids a phone. Give them a phone. Give a 60-second recap of the game. Build in, if the local bowling alley or the local football stadium is your sponsor, build in something there with sponsorship rights and everything. Make a whole kind of brand as much as you can around the sports team and everything. And that's just going to go so much further and so much more beyond than like an AI generic, write up that maybe 12 parents will read after the bowling game or the basketball game or the football game of a team that's 4-8. Like,
I totally agree with you. Here we go, putting our media guy hats on. Here's the media guy hat, right?
There you go.
If everyone's bored by my media guy rants, like you could just tune out now. But I mean, this is, I would actually argue that what you just described as a creator is journalism. It's just a modern version of journalism. And journalism, true journalists are freaking out, right? At the end of the day, it's about getting good and accurate, unbiased as best as you can information out to other people. That's it. That's really the definition of it. In a time gone by, but everyone thinks that has to take the format of a concisely written game recap. You know why that existed? Because 50 years ago, most Yankees games, 70 years ago, 1950s, whatever, most Yankees games were not on television. They were on the radio. The reporter who traveled to Chicago to watch them play the White Sox, right, was the eyes on the game. So that person had to write what they were seeing in a succinct format so somebody back in New York the next day can understand what happened in the game. TV has obviously disintermediated that, but then you add the internet and instant highlights all over social media. Nobody needs that format. So this is just a new format of journalism when it comes to content creation. And the written recap of a high school event, I would argue players don't want it. Their parents don't want it either, right? Yeah, it's cool to see your kid's name in print. You know what I'd rather have? The 60-second AI-generated clip of all 5 of his catches and his 1 touchdown, right? Which AI and Huddle and things like that are really, really good at. Nobody needs this. And I agree with you. Have somebody, give them a phone. Don't have them film and recap the game because AI is actually pretty good at that part of it. To your point, have them follow the team around. Create, do what IShowSpeed was doing at the World Cup. That wasn't an accident that he had that access, right? It was about giving unique access, behind the scenes, some fun. The game part itself, like that content is commoditized, generally speaking. The real skill now is kind of building the culture around it. So have a kid follow the team behind the scenes on the bus after your high school team loses the homecoming game, ride him back like that. That is way more interesting to watch. Anyway, Chuck Todd's happy.
But district ones, I mean, I think you'd agree with this. District ones, their heart is in the right place. You know, we're trying to get local schools, we're trying to get them some more money and stuff. But like, I think what we wrote about a couple of weeks ago with campus multimedia, that's the way to go about it. You take an entire conference and you take everybody in that conference and everything, and now you can sell ads to DoorDash, or you can sell ads to Google or YouTube or whatever, blah, 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 blah. You can sell ads now and partner everybody together. So now that you're touching 200,000 kids in a space, and you're not just touching, you know, the 12 people that play on the basketball team, and there are 24 parents that are maybe going to read or write or react to this. Because I do think, and you know, put a bow on this with the whole college thing, like when college teams are hiring GMs and they're hiring ADs, like a lot of their jobs now are, how are you making money for the sports teams? How are you making money for the school and everything? That's going to trickle down, if it hasn't already, with high school ADs. We see in New Jersey, so many sports are getting cut right now. So many arts and clubs programs are getting cut right now. Like, how are you going to be innovative and make money for your teams? And I think campus multimedia kind of knocked out of the park with that, where it's like, hey, we'll just wrap it all into one, and we'll just equally distribute like media rights deals for everybody to get a little piece of the pie and stuff.
It's a great point, and it comes back to what we said earlier. It's right. It's revenue maximization, right? It's the monetizer, right? Call that person the monetizer. And so much of it comes back to sponsorship. What are you laughing at?
The monetizer just sounds like a Marvel superhero.
It's a great name. It's a great name. It's a great, you know, every sports team needs a monetizer, right?
Monetizer.
But so much of it does come back to sponsorship, right? And brand partnership, which is sponsorship under a different name. And I think whether it's campus multimedia or what your report is doing here, I do think anyone who is out there claiming that sponsorship, and we've talked about this a lot, is going to save or impact youth sports, you have to understand the math of sponsorship, right? So even if this U report thing works, right? How many parents are in an area that are going to care to read this? A couple hundred, right? 500 max. Do you know what like an ad on 500 impressions is worth? Even if it's like highly targeted local, like $20 bullishly, right? You need to understand the math as to whether that money's even going to matter. There's a guy out there on his LinkedIn, Replayer, it's called. And I commented because he is positioning their camera as it's going to solve affordability in youth sports. And I think you can say that. Team Snap Fast Break talks about this. How can we give back? But they don't come out here and say that, hey, this new product feature we have is going to like solve the problem, right? This guy's out there, and their main marketing line is, we're going to solve it by, we're going to have a streaming camera, and we're going to subsidize the cost of that camera by selling sponsorship at scale. And then we're going to pass that money back to the organizations and solve the participation problem. Okay. If that's going to be your marketing line, then somebody deserves to nitpick it, which I did in his comments, right? And then he kind of responded and talked about how they're thinking about it, but there wasn't a lot of math there. And my point is like, the camera's $2,000 a year. Even if you could subsidize half that cost, that's $1,000. If every team has one of these cameras and they're spending $1,000 on the camera, other than the top 5% of clubs and programs that have real scale, is a little ad bug on the stream that is watched by a dozen parents going to pay back more than a meaningful amount, more than $1,000 over the course of a year? And the answer is, in almost all cases, no, right? Could it subsidize a little bit of the cost? Maybe. But I think you have your report or Replayer out there saying, hey, we're going to generate meaningful revenue. You have to like do the math on this stuff. So I do take exception. The media guy hat of me takes exception to anyone who says they're going to solve youth sports participation or meaningfully impact it through sponsorship without understanding the math. It's certainly doable, but it needs to be more than just a bug on a stream for a 12-year-old soccer game. It needs to be more than just an AI-generated recap of a high school football game. It needs to be things like team naming rights.
Wow.
Right?
What a bow. What a bow.
Drop the
team
mic,
naming rights.
Right? It's got to be bigger. Like, there's just not, most things aren't perfect game, right? Most of these are wrecking clubs that, dozens of people care about the result. So like just an ad, a straight ad to dozens of people isn't thousands of dollars worth of value. It's just not, right? You need to think more deeply about the sponsorship. So this all comes back to media. Media economics are now coming into youth sports.
Yeah. Anything else for today?
No, my mic fell. My mic fell.
Well, I think that's no better place than to wrap it up. Thank you to anybody who listened in today. Thank you to Black Magic for sponsoring the show, and we will talk to you later this week. GG's.
Good game.